Hi everyone, I hope you are doing well. Good to see you guys. Happy Sunday. I am not recording this video on a Sunday, it's just like last Sunday. I am still traveling, so thinking of you guys and wanted to make sure that I had a video to share with you. This one might be a little bit briefer than the one that I released last Sunday. And in fact, I recorded it a few minutes ago, but that's beside the point. Since last Sunday, I've been talking about how to remain relevant from an MBTI perspective, how to remain interested in a system that can be seen as rigid from a number of points of view. I suggested that an alternative to just moving on completely is to remain nominally within the MBTI sphere of influence, while developing really your own approach inside it. And I was referring to this book, The Ecstatic Soul, which is the book in which I attempt to do precisely that with the development of Jungian Existentialism, which is going to be my topic today. And don't forget that there's another book that you can get, which is my new novel, a Jungian Existentialist novel. You could call it that, featuring what is most likely an INFJ main character. Both books are available in the description box below. Maybe a Christmas present if you're interested in that. And if you have the books or one of them, please provide a review on Goodreads, on Amazon. That's always very helpful. If you can think of that, it's just a bit of your time, that would be super helpful. So, it's been a while since we've talked about Jungian Existentialism, and I thought that it might be a good idea for me to broach the topic again, because over the last few months, it has at times probably seemed as if I was just talking about MBTI, and I'm really kind of talking about Jungian Existentialism when I'm talking about MBTI. It's, if you like, a region that has overlap with MBTI, but again, there's a difference in approach, and I want to just re-emphasize it. I've talked about it before, but I like to re-emphasize it just so that it's clear in your heads what is slightly different. And it's linked to the fact that I tend to be, as you know, very comfortable talking about the INFJ personality. Relatively comfortable talking about personalities that have the same function stack as set of functions as the INFJ personalities. So ENFJ and ISTP and ESTP, although I make fewer videos about these types. I'm comfortable talking about NI dominance, and then there's a few exceptions like INFPs and ENFPs. But now the reason why that's the case, like I said, it's connected to this concept of Jungian existentialism. Because at one level, the methodological difference it operates from MBTI and Myers-Briggs is actually quite significant. I would say it's an internalist method, whereas Myers-Briggs and most personality systems, in fact, maybe all of them except Jungian existentialism, are externalist methods. Some of them claim to be scientific. Some of them claim that others are unscientific. Well, they are either scientific or scientifically neutral. Some of them don't claim to be scientific, but certainly claim to be practically helpful to people's self-development, self-discovery, and self-help. Enneagram. Others. But there is a sense in which the set of attributes of different types that is described in every case is a set that could in principle just be given in a list of qualities, a list of properties, externally speaking. It's an objective description of someone's personality. It could be given by a third party. And conversely, when people, say in YouTube comments or on websites, on forums, say, I feel this way, I feel that way, about being this type. I experience these emotions. There's always the temptation to say, okay, that's a first person viewpoint. Let's turn it into a third person viewpoint by cutting out what's irrelevant or what's, vague or doesn't really describe anything, and keep what seems to be held in common with people of that personality type that are not this person, and then we'll provide a third person description, and we put it under a concept, and then we'll have our different list of types. And the only exception to this particular method that I've come across is Carl Jung himself. It's implicit in psychological types, and it's explicit in his autobiography, where he essentially psychoanalyzes himself. That's also why Jungian Existentialism is called Jungian Existentialism. It's a way of harking back to the work of Carl Jung. And the work of Carl Jung, particularly insofar as it incorporates what Jungian Existentialism has also, is this internalist approach to talking about the traits of personality. That is to say, an approach that consists in finding the source, not in third-person observation of another person's behavior and personality traits, but in the experience by a person of their own consciousness and the attempt to describe the structure of that consciousness. So that's also the phenomenology à la Husserl, à la Sartre, à la Heidegger and Merleau-Ponty that you see on display in the 20th century in a lot of literature, including a lot of existentialist literature. So certainly Jungian Existentialism is a phenomenology of sorts. It attempts to provide a description of the structure of our own consciousness. That's an internal description, which again is why I've repeated many times that the best person to write a Jungian Existentialist book on the INFP type is an INFP. The best person to write a book on the ENTP type is an ENTP, and you could apply that to all the types. And it has this advantage, or at least it has this added value compared to bare bones MBTI or generally theories of personality that are externalist in perspective and source, is that it covers something that is very important to us, which is how we experience life, how we experience our own psyche. In the words of Thomas Nagel, great philosopher Thomas Nagel, what is it like to be me? What is it like to be a bat? And that's the famous essay by Thomas Nagel. What is it like to be Thomas Nagel? What is it like to be Renaud Contini? Certainly it feels like something, and unless you're him, you won't know. Jungian Existentialism claims, in essence, that in addition to the fact that there is something it is like to be someone, it is like to be a certain animal, but in a richer way, it is like something to be a human being and a particular person. In addition to that, at a slightly higher level, there is something it is like to be an INFJ. There is something it is like to be an ISFP. There is something it is like to be an ISTJ, so on and so forth. And that's something that will not, that's a particular exploration of personality type that goes way beyond personality, in fact. But again, I keep the vocabulary because it's useful to me to keep it. In objective personality, in C.S. Joseph, even in cognitive type, at least in that respect, and so far, might change in the future with cognitive type because it's a flexible system, constantly evolving. In MBTI, in this, in that, in Michael Pierce's system, in Harry CPT's system, all these models, they have some great virtues, but they don't tell you what it is like to be an INFJ. And maybe some people are interested in that. The structure of the INFJ consciousness, the structure of the INTP consciousness. You can see how MBTI is still overlapping here. and why I use the same terms a lot of the time for ease of reference and for my audience, but also how it opens a whole new field of possibilities. Why I would choose to focus on the INFJ, why I would feel moderately confident to focus on NI leads, ENFJs, to some extent intuitive types, because I also have some theorizing that is not strictly Jungian existentialist about, personality function stacks and their the function of functions, so to speak, in the human organism as a system of inputs and outputs. I'm not going to go into it here. I glimpse at it in the Ecstatic Soul, but it exists in somewhat of a tension with the Jungian existentialist elements, which is why I didn't explore it in detail, but still. There's lots of speculation that is only speculation from MBTI's perspective. From my point of view, it's not a speculation, it's legitimate philosophy of personality, philosophy of typology, if you like. That's my added value, and that's what Jungian existentialism can bring. Ultimately, and I'll finish with this, I didn't call it Jungian Phenomenology, which in the most technical sense is maybe the most accurate term to describe my approach. I called it Jungian Existentialism first because existentialism and phenomenology come together very closely, so it's fair to assume that one implies the other. Secondly, because in existentialism you have something in addition to phenomenology that is present in my approach, and that is the idea of liberation, the idea of enlightenment, the idea of meaning, leading a meaningful life. The idea being that if you understand the way that your psyche works and what it feels like to be you, you will also have a better sense of what it is like to do what you were meant to do what you want to do, to not be pushed along, to not be too self-critical, to not be under the pressure of all these various entities that are known to be pressures on the INFJ consciousness because of its particular makeup. Freedom, meaning, value. How to achieve those. It's self-exploration and self-discovery of a kind, but it's achieved through the internal approach. The approach of the carving out an exploration of the structure of your own consciousness, what it is like to be you, what it is like to be you as an INFJ, and that's what Jungian existentialism adds, from my perspective, and there's still a lot to do in that field. Not only for the other types, as I'm hoping other people will do, but for the INFJ type, as I will myself do in more books and more videos in the future. All right, see you soon, guys. I better get ready for my flight, essentially. All right, bye-bye.